Right then. So, Tom, you're a few months into the role as director of rugby for Royal Navy Rugby. How's it going for you?
Yeah, well, we've had a fantastic start with the under 23s in Surf Championship, winning that. And yeah, it's been a lot of work up to now. I guess my role is really setting that environment, trying to put the big picture bits in place to allow the team to succeed once they get into camp and once they get the team together. So yeah, there's been a lot of background work. Little projects. Haven't tried to do too much, but certainly little tweaks on what we've done in the years previous, and the handover I took from Rob O'Kane. So yeah, hopefully they will all start to come off and be in place when the senior camps get together in January, um, and put us in a good place, ready for May and
Does
April.
any does anything really prepare you to take the step from from life in the coal face in terms of playing into into administration?
Yeah, well, I've been doing rugby administration with the UK Armed Forces. So for the past 5 years, I've been the secretary for UK Armed Forces, doing a lot of that background stuff from operations management, trying again create that environment for teams to succeed. So I've got a bit of experience. It's quite nice to be a bit more rugby performance focused, and I'm enjoying that. How do you get the best out of the players? What's important to get the best performance? So that side of things has been really nice to be involved with, and just have that interaction with all the players and the coaches, and listening and working out what they want. There's always nice to haves and there's essentials, and actually, yeah, that's been really enjoyable getting into that stuff.
What did you take from the 2024 experience or the 2023-24 experience into 2024-5, given how close it was with the under 23s and with the senior men winning the Masters yourself, and then the women taking steps step by step as well?
Yeah, so we did a sort of end of season review, and obviously my job is to put competitive teams out on the park. So don't get me wrong, I like winning as much as anyone else in navy blue. But I think as long as we're competitive, we're doing the right job, and we're putting a good product out there, allowing the players to shine, show off the talents on a big, on a performance, to have competitive games that are enjoyable to watch. Then I think we're doing the job. So I think we were really competitive with the under 23s, some close games. Comes down to fine margins sometimes in games, but that's okay. We were there and thereabouts, where we needed to be. Obviously, the Mariners, same again, to win it, but fine margins in both games. And same with the senior men, fine margins. So actually, for those teams, they're where we needed to be. And for this year, it's about protecting that operating model that they've been working off, because it's obviously doing the right thing. And it's finding those little tweaks, what are those little gains we can get after, not only in terms of performance, but experience for the players as well. What's going to make them feel valued? What's going to make them want to put on the shirt again? And then for the women, the gap's growing a little bit, certainly between us and the Army. So we're looking to address that next season. We've got a few plans in action to sort of close the gap around with the players we've got now, and then the amount of players, the player base that we've got in the Royal Navy involved in rugby. There's a lot of, it all starts from the community, as is any good rugby club. It all starts at the grassroots. You've got to get that grassroots right. You've got to build players. You've got to bring them into the game, and then develop them up into the high performance team. So yeah, we're on that mission across the RNIU, both for the community output and then into myself, and what we can do to bring more women into playing rugby and in the Navy. So yeah, well, hopefully we'll see a big difference this year, and I'm quite excited about it actually.
With the let's start with the women first off. Is that given that obviously all three services have got a the volume of women that they can choose their teams from is obviously so small. Is it with them? Is it as much a case of collaborating with the other two services in terms of for a bit of mutual benefit to grow the competitiveness and and just the engagement with the competition as it is the competitiveness?
I don't think you'll ever get any single service to make a game competitive on purpose. So I think every team is going to put out their strongest team, and what it'll be will be. Um, Having said that, I have engaged with my counterparts in the army and the air force to look at what they've done. They've got to a position where they are, they've invested quite heavily in women's rugby. Certainly, the air force done a lot with players on professional contracts, bringing the likes of Amy Kane into the service as a reservist first, and then through now as a regular. And they've got quite a few international players playing, so we've got some lessons we can learn there. And same with the army, looking at the number of teams playing, the player base they've got, how they have grown it. There's probably some lessons there. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to change the battle tactics of picking your best team and letting them go at it on the day. But certainly, yeah, we can learn some lessons from those guys, and I have engaged with my sort of counterparts to try and see what we can do. Some of these things take a bit of time. Like growing a rugby team, that whole grassroots bit just takes time. I feel like there's a big difference. We've got a Navy development team that have been playing at the moment, played a few games. There's a lot of new players in there. So actually, I'm quite excited to see that new player group coming through into the senior setup next year, a few of them, and just looking at those new players we've got available. And then some of the other things are probably, 3 to 5 year projects for them to come to fruition, but we'll get there in the end.
And I guess, there's a lot of similarities with the women's game in general, is that it's easy to forget just how steep that curve has been for women's rugby overall. And I mean, it's only it's 10, 15 years that there's been a women's championship. So in comparison to 100 years of the men's, I mean, it's so chalk and everybody's on such a pedal to the metal way of just growing that, aren't they?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's I don't know if it's the fastest growing sport, but it must be up there. And I think the success of the Red Roses has driving, engagement with women's rugby in this country. And then obviously hosting the Rugby World Cup next year and the International Defence Rugby Competition next year for women in the UK, hopefully will be another catalyst to get more players involved, more players playing rugby, and then fall in love with the game. So yeah, it's a steep growth. It is moving quickly, and just trying to keep up is good.
With the men, the 1%ers, is it as much? I mean, after what happened at Twickenham last year, how much of your job over the summer has been to speak to Dave and Jared and all the coaches and the senior leaders of almost, the psychological, you can carry quite a lot of psychological scars from that into a new season. So how have you been working with them to try and smooth that out and to get everybody back on the horse, so to speak?
Yeah, I think the back-to-back was the goal for a lot of the coaches. Didn't achieve it. To come so close, absolute heartbreak. I mean, seeing the faces on the players after the game, just gutted compared to obviously the year before. They've done the team kind of did their own review, taking in senior player feedback, just doing a bit of reflection on what did we do right, what did we do wrong, how can we set it? Because you go into that first half with a big lead, doing all the right things, playing some of the best rugby I've ever seen out of a Navy rugby team, certainly, and to play against the Army at Twickenham and put that on the pitch or get it all to come off, amazing, and then to not hang on in there cream mode. So yeah, there's some key takeaways they've done. Psychologically, I think they're pretty psychologically strong, actually, having talked about it, and they've been pretty critical about things. You might be surprised. It's not massive changes required. It's subtle differences, but that we'll certainly take into this year and see if we've got it right. See if we've found those little things that we can do better next year. But we're certainly keen. We're ready for a comeback.
And in terms of the in terms of the build up over the next few months, there's so much uncertainty in the broader the broader commitments for the Navy, for all the services, in terms of how the plans to grow, to play the games, to get the systems in place, to put lessons into practice at the same time while managing everybody's day job commitments as well. Is that something which is different for you this year than last year as a group and as leadership?
Yeah, I think some of the commitments that the Navy have got, in particular next year, are a challenge to get around. And actually, that's when I talk about a lot of the work being done in the background. Some of it is around that player release, like trying to get players into the right places, negotiating with line management, to work out what their year looks like really, so they can be released for rugby or certainly for the key games. And operation commitments come first. We get that. But yeah, there's been a lot of work in there. It is going to be a challenge. We are almost under half the size of the army. The RAF are pretty similar to us in terms of size, which does limit your player depth. Luckily, as you've seen, we have a really good pull through from the under 23s level. A lot of those players come through year on year into the camp, and we've got a second sort of development team called the Academy. They play in the community area, who again have been pretty strong. So there is a bit of depth. There's players out there. There's new players you find all the time, right? You discover new talent that you didn't know was out there. But I think it's going to be hard. I think getting those key players off that you need, but having the depth available, because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You get an injury half season, you haven't got the depth to recover. I think any Premiership team's found you need that depth, you need those options. So we're looking okay at the moment. With the certainly each team's got their battle board up of what their first team looks like, what their second string, third string, fourth string looks like. So we know where the depth is and where we need to call in favours where possible.
It's nice that you mentioned the under 23s before I do, because I think going away to Aldershot and winning, especially when the army was on the back of a good win over the RAF themselves, how pleasing is that for you to see? And we talked about mentally. I mean, they played really well, but mentally they were switched on right from the off.
Yeah, they were really frustrated post the Air Force game. I've seen an amazing growth in that team. There was 20 new players come in from an inter-services squad from the previous year, so massive turnover of players. Some really talented individuals, but every game we played in the build-up, it was a different team each week. We didn't have the consistency because of commitments, people get worked, so we really struggled to bring it all together. And I think for the Air Force, for the first game, we kind of got it together. And a few frustrations were there, certainly in the backs, depth slightly off, timing slightly off, and that's all it takes. A couple of passes going around and you get a grubber through and suddenly under the sticks. But the defence, which Ben Priddy has been working on as head coach all season, hammering in the chop tackle, paid dividends, because that work on that defence on the day, to keep the army to 6, keep them out from scoring a try just before half time, was a big momentum swing. And then the backs got the depth right. They had running lines that held players, and suddenly, next thing you know, you're down in the wings and getting the ball into wide channels and scoring tries. And that was it was good. So yeah, absolutely. I think the hard work put in on defence, keeping it together, keeping the squad really focused, and they put their bodies on the line. They wanted it. I think they wanted it more than the army, and that shone on the night.
It's a funny old campaign into service, isn't it, in comparison to other rugby seasons, in that you've got the development competition or the introductory level, the under 23s level first off, and then leading straight into the seniors. So the fillip that win gives the rest of the service and the rest of the teams. I mean, is it already buzzing in terms of the various group WhatsApps? It's like, yeah, right, that set the standard for the year. Let's crack on.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. There is a buzz around the union already. Our 23 side, a lot of the senior men's players have been involved in coaching them in some way. Craig Duncan and Jay Toogood, Will Riggersford, they've all been there helping out, coaching. So they're definitely part of it, and they're getting that buzz already, and generating that excitement that we need going into next year. And I think it does. It just steps you up on a good start. And again, those players who have had that experience now of winning an IS, they know what it means coming through into that senior squad, even if they're not necessarily involved all the way up to the end, but they'll be around the camp and they'll they'll certainly bring that buzz with them. So yeah, no, it is exciting.
Is that something that you've tried to foster in terms of that engagement from senior players into going back and coaching? Is that a deliberate policy, or is that something that they've done themselves?
No, it's not deliberate at all. They they just wanted to get involved. Actually, almost almost an opposite of my. Oh, let's try and broaden recruitment, see what the coaches out we got out there, and try to develop coaching pathways. Actually, the players are hungry to get involved. A lot of them have come through the system themselves. They remember what it was like to be at under 23, and they feel like they can add value, and they have. So it's really, really pleasing to see. They've done it all off their own backs. They just love being part of it, and it's good to see. And them giving back to the 23s before they go back into camp is being good.
And we can't not talk about the Mariners. Leave the best till last, maybe. Let's reflect back on Richmond first off and winning the title last year. It was how much does it mean to you and to the rest of the players who've obviously been around Navy rugby so long to win the Masters level, win the over 35s, the Classics title?
Yeah, it was massive, and it's taken a while, right? So for the Mariners team, if you look over the last 20 years, it goes through ebbs and flows. You get a group together, they kind of get to a peak, and then it all falls apart. People get too old, can't do it any longer. And so for this group that we had that won last year, we've kind of been together probably over the last 3-4 years building. The year previous, we'd had a really good game against the Air Force. Everything clicked, and we did a really good job on them down at Brickwoods. I can't remember the score, but it was fairly significant. And then we didn't get the performance against the Army. I think we were a little bit shell-shocked. They came out as hard, which we know the Army are going to do. But some people hadn't experienced that before, and just did the old turtle and disappeared inside the shell. And I think then we came out this year, we knew what we had to do. The Air Force were really strong, so they put us up a good test, set the standard. We changed the way the season worked a little bit, so we had the harder games just going into IS, which sort of prepped us better. And then we knew we had a job to do against the Army. We knew where our strengths were, where our weaknesses were. We took all those lessons from the Air Force game, and we put them in place. I mean, I was absolutely chuffed. I was knackered, so I couldn't really think too hard after the game, having played 80. But massive. Felt like a massive job done that had been building for a while. And I guess we'd invested in it. We talked about it. We knew we had to perform on the night, but we got the performance. Kept the Army out of the game. Kept the ball out of some of their stronger players' hands. Kept them scrummaging, which they didn't like too much. And you get the rewards. So yeah, it was a massive moment for the Mariners, and also because it's the night before the Army Navy now as well. All the senior lads buzzing, really chuffed. A lot of them came to watch. It set them off on the right note going into the next games.
In terms of 2025, it's how. And I hate to come at it from a disappointed angle, but if you don't retain at least 2 of those titles this year, if you don't retain that title and win the men's, is it going to be a significant disappointment for you, or is inter-service always generally too close to call that it's just on any given day?
No, we play to win. It is close. It's really competitive. And you can't really take much from the build-up games. So, the teams don't play each other in the build-up, so you have no idea. You don't even play the same teams, so you don't really get any metric of how you're doing all the time. So the only time you find out about what you're going to be like on the get is when you arrive on the pitch. Whereas most teams will play each other, in the league structure, you play each other quite a lot, so you kind of have a measure of what they're going to do. So it keeps it exciting. Would I be disappointed if we didn't retain the titles or do better? Yeah, I would. Yeah, because I think we're putting in a lot of hard work, and if we've looked at where we've gone wrong, we think we've got good plans about how to correct it, what we can do differently next year. So I think if it doesn't come off, It might be part of that's just rugby on the day. You know, sometimes the ball bounces. It's a weird shaped ball. But I think fundamentally, yeah, I feel we're doing all the hard work. We're doing everything necessary. If we don't get it right, then we need to look at look at actually, have we got it right in terms of analysis of what we've got wrong, or have we gone after the right things? So yeah, I will be disappointed, but I think I'm confident that won't be the case.
And finally, if who would you pick out in terms of names to watch out for in 2025?
So there's a few for the women's team. Jazz Abel, so she's just been selected for UCAF in Dubai. She's got absolute wheels. I think we weren't able to get the ball in her hands enough last year, but I think if she gets the ball in space, she'll be one to watch. Rowan Sinclair as well, workhorse in the back row, does the groundwork, gets amongst everything, gets involved in every contact. So yeah, definitely one to watch out for. For the senior men's team, I would have said it, but Jack Wright, because he had such a good game last year at hooker on debut. He's still one to watch out for. He's a cracking player. And there's a few new players coming in. I don't want to put any pressure on them by putting the names out there, but I think we might see another surprise like we did with Jack last year, with a young player coming through having a really good performance, and that's outside your standards of your Jareds and your Sam Matavezes. They're very experienced. We know they're going to have a good game. They do every year. They know what it takes to win. So yeah, I think you'll see a surprise from one of the new players this year. I'll leave it at that without putting any pressure on them.